Peace, family. You're tuned in to the Diva and the Unk, mastering voice and vision and leadership.
I'm Manifesto, your diva in flow, helping you unlock the power of presence and voice.
And I'm Darrell, aka Everybody's Unk, here to build conscious culture and sales that feel like truth.
In every episode, we blend a little soul and strategy to amplify your leadership
and help you move through life with purpose, clarity, and real alignment.
Ready to turn up that resonance?
Let's get it.
Welcome.
Excited to be here this week, episode 8. We have a good one for you. This week it's divine feminine and masculine. They are not at war. They are not at war.
That is the truth. I agree with that, but we're gonna talk about that a little later.
So let's move into segment 1. It's the recap from last week's episode. And last week's episode was also a doozy. Vocal triggers. What was behind the way we speak to each other?
Yes, I think this is something that's big for me because we had a lot of that going on. I feel like everybody around me was triggered all the time, and they sometimes had pain, and they were trying to resolve it by having arguments and anger and all this kind of stuff. And I would see the pain, and like people just keep exacerbating it by what they were saying and by what they were doing, and then other people. So we talked a little bit about how triggers play a role in how we talk to each other and what we can get done together.
Yeah, triggers play a huge role. I also think triggers, as we discussed last week, come from a place of kind of not really knowing about who you are, what you truly believe in. I think they're just hidden patterns of previous input that you had. So someone taught you that you didn't like a certain flavor of ice cream or a certain flavor of whether you like hot sauce or not hot sauce. A lot of that behavior is learned behavior passed down for generations from our families. So, you can just be triggered and not know why you're triggered because you have no sense of self. And we discussed that last week as well. But this week, we have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to move past segment 1 and move into segment 2, Monifa's moment of transformation. What is your moment of transformation for us this week?
Yeah, well, this week we're trying to talk about sabotaging ourselves when we're speaking. So last week we're talking triggers. So if you have any feedback on that, we'd love to see like if anything that we spoke about is something you've experienced or you're that you noticed that you want to maybe do differently now that you've heard about it from us. And this is it's similar but different. Triggers usually are coming from the external. We're reacting. It's a reactive thing, right? Sabotaging, though, is like self-sabotaging. Usually it's coming from inside. It's happening because of what we don't understand about ourselves. Everything happens because of what we don't understand about ourselves, honestly. That doesn't match the intention of what we're doing it for. And so this is one of those things that happens a lot with voice because we only recognize it as an instrument for what we do with and for others. And so when you work with me, you realize, oh, that's for me too. And it actually starts with me. And that's what self-sabotage, where we come in and we're trying to maybe create a connection, a relationship, or trying to influence somebody or get a point across, even in an argument. And the biggest thing I see when people are doing that and they're trying to affect change or make an impact with their voice, and they're not accomplishing that, is that they are explaining why they are right or they are good enough instead of focusing on their feelings and how the other person's feelings. and what you can do to help them, or how they can better help them understand how things can be different, right? And so that's what ends up happening the most often I see, is that people, and they're like, I don't understand. I've got my data. I've told them about all the things I've done before. And then they say something like I'm intimidating to them. And then they want to, complain about the fact that I can't just make it work, right? Or do the thing, right? Without, and usually for free, at some level for free, or not getting the value noticed and paid for, right? So it's this thing that happens where they're like, well, I don't know why they didn't make the decision. And usually it's because the only thing you're talking about is yourself. And a lot of people kind of, especially if you're already in a position of leadership, a lot of people already know you're a leader. They're not really questioning that. If you know something they don't know, they're assuming that you're coming from a position of leadership. And when you are questioning yourself, you're undermining that truth for them. So they're like, well, what do you want me to do about, I can't make you anything, right? And so what the response is usually is that, oh, well, you must not be for me because I'm not somebody who can do those things. I know I'm not making any sense. So let me be more. Let's give an example. So one of my peoples went into a conversation with a business to be able to help them and maybe just do some coaching for them, for their clients, people that show up for their services. It was a community service, a government service based building. And she's like, I'll come in. And they're like, we can just come in and start the relationship. And if I can tell them about my offerings on here, then that would be great. But if we need to make another arrangement, in the meantime, I'm willing to just help. That's what she came there for, is just to help, right? The other person was like, oh, well, she saw her authority within her body, and she just carries herself a certain way. So people just automatically know this person has money, this person has a sense of leadership, right? And they always just go there, and they're all like, well, I don't know how we could help you. It's not like they can afford to pay her anything that would be worth her time, right? It's not like they can do these things. And the reason why they're responding in that way is because the only thing she spoke about was what she had to bring. Now you would think that's a great thing, that she was coming with gifts, right? So that everybody should be happy. But that's not the result. The result is the other person feels like I'm not in this picture, and that can look like I'm not good enough to be served by you, or that can look like I have nothing I don't even know how to deal with somebody like you. I don't know what to do with you, right? Now, she had come in and said, wow, I love this organization. I love that you're at the grassroots of the problem and that you're helping people in real time. I want to do more things like that. And so that's why I'm here today. I just want to see if I can be of benefit to you in any way of making more of what you're already doing excellently, like the more of that happen, right? And I already noticed you're doing this well, you're doing this well, you're doing this well. That's why I am here. So what can I do to assist and be a part of that? Right. And then they can like spitball together a little bit on that.
Right. Even that in that scenario, it gives someone the opportunity to even get more in depth on it, to try and figure out, okay, well, we need more help in this area. Is that something you have some impact in, some experience in? So yeah, I mean, for me, it always goes back to my sales and some of the things we heard about before, and I've mentioned them on this podcast. Seek first to understand before being understood.
Yeah.
So even if you have a goods or services to someone, well, maybe they're really good at that right now, and but maybe something you've been working on is something that, hey, we might need some assistance in there. Do you have any ideas about this? Do you have any ideas about that? But you have to be inquisitive first and foremost before anyone can actually delve into, because you're always going to be prepared. I'm a firm believer in that what you're working on, even if it's not a part of what your core thing is right now, there will be a use for it just because you're working on it.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said is like the inquisitive part, right? Because the other option is if, number one, either you know enough going in that you could tell them like what you can do in the context, or you have to find out. So you have to ask the questions, right? What are you up to right now? I love the mission of this community offering, and what are you doing right now that I can help out in, right? And or what are you doing right now? Oh, that's great that you're doing that. You know what? I just started this thing. I think it would be a great way to do that. I was like, at minimum, somebody with her presence would have been a draw for an event. So whatever events they're doing for community events, like she could have just found out, what's your calendar looking like? What's the next big public event you're having? I'd love to MC, or I'd love to do like your overview for the year or whatever. Like just be the person that can make what they're doing even better. Right.
Right.
So that was the first piece. There's actually a second piece to this too, because there's people like me who would go the other way. you're sharing how you can help. You're sharing what you are able to. I mean, you're not sharing. I'm sorry, you're not sharing how you can help. You're not sharing what you're able to do. That's something that can be the other version of that. So you may be there, they might already be participating or interested in what you're up to. And then you forget the part where you say, well, what, can I do this in a specific way? Can I invite you to like join in today? Can I get you to click on this link? That's something I'm working on. So even for this video, that's my little reminder to say, there's going to be a link in the description. So when you see the link, go ahead and click on it to see if you want to go a little further with me, right? So I've got a great little freebie. You don't have to like talk to me right away. But if you want to be a cosmic creatrix, I have a cosmic creatrix manifesto, and that's just for people who want to own their ability to create what they want in their world, in their life, in their business, in their world. Okay. So you can do that, or you can just contact me directly, email me, because that's what I like to do, is help people to create things in the world. So when you don't share, then you're ignoring the part of when you don't share what you do have, you've already prepared for other people. That's another way of sabotaging yourself. So we both kind of have habits of both, and the key is in the balance. We were actually listening to something last night. It was talking about having that balanced third position, which is, I know what I have to offer. I know what you're doing amazing, and I would love to join you in making it even better. Right? Let's do something together, and whatever that looks like in the best way forward for the both of us. Right? So it's what I always end up coming back to myself is like owning and appreciating where you are in something, and then also owning and appreciating where somebody else is, and then letting them both be equally powerful.
All right. Agreed. Excellent insight in helping us transform. Segment 3, you're unking inside. Let me holler at you, nieces and nephews. Okay, so even this episode sort of touches in on some of the, I guess, social, I don't want to call them battles, but I would call them rearrangements of the way we perceive. Okay, and so there's this perceived war on TikTok, on social media, about men versus women. So as a male, Gen X, we tend to get labeled as toxic. Okay. A lot of our natural behaviors and ways that we do things are typically labeled as toxic masculinity. Okay. Now, I don't think I'm toxic at all. I don't think I have a toxic bone in my body when it comes to people. I really don't. And that's just me. That's my perception. I think I'm absolutely fair. I think maybe the only thing I might have a tendency to do that might rub somebody wrong way is mansplain. But that's the teacher in me. I don't think that's a toxic quality. However, I do believe that there is a difference between the behavior of the man and the behavior of males who have yet to graduate into man status. Right? So, what I wanted to do was go back and touch us back into some of the old philosophies of what a man's responsibility, not necessarily responsibility, it's more like the things he chooses to endeavor himself in. Now, whether that's choosing to endeavor himself in being a family man, whether that's choosing to endeavor himself in reaching the highest heights of a said profession, of a passion that he has, so men have a tendency to um, have these desires and dreams, and we really do put an effort into going after them. So I think males who have yet to attain man status, but can stay in male status uh, for reasons of addiction, broken heart, unfulfilled goals, giving up too quickly on yourself. Now, every man has experienced those things, but it's the way that we perceive them that and the way we respond after these things have happened to us that sort of dictate moving forward. Some guys, everybody has a way of internalizing situations of power. Okay. But for me, we're born males. And through training and wins and losses in life, you develop your character shapes that makes you a man. Now let's go into what I believe constitutes a man's behavior. And I don't even like doing the opposite, because once you understand what a man's behavior is, you'll see where he's not being a man. These things are self-explanatory. We don't even have to mention it. But I wanted to go back and I wanted to use some of the older philosophies that sort of built the construct for today's man, and how that construct might have slightly gone off course, so that now you can associate toxicity with man's behavior. Okay. So, from the ancient Greek and Roman philosophies, a man was determined by cardinal virtues. Okay? Wisdom, prudence, courage, fortitude, temperance, moderation, and justice. Okay? Those are sort of the bedrock virtues of the classic man. Now, I don't know if there's anyone who would watch this or listen to me right now think that wisdom, prudence, courage, fortitude, temperance, moderation, and justice are bad qualities, or qualities that you wouldn't want to see in a person that you would call your husband and or mate. Those are just really good qualities. Okay, there's a Greek idea of self-restraint, decorum, and discipline and moderation. Soundness of mind and is essential for moral excellence. What I think we've done in these later generations after Gen X is that we've blurred the lines on what those things are. Okay. So even Aristotle has what he would call the magnanimous man. Okay? The magnanimous man embodies high self regard, dignity, generosity, integrity, courage, okay, tempered by purpose, honest in his emotion, independence, forgiveness, and calm, measured speech. That is Aristotle's definition of a magnanimous man. Okay. For Romans, these virtues describe valor, moral excellence, discipline, honor, uh, reliability, trust, uh, piety to God and to family, um, dignity, which is one of the words that I really have a lot of connection to, just being dignified in the things that you do. And sometimes those those qualities in men, when they're around other men who don't have those qualities, the other man tends to judge that man. They tend to want to find fault in that man because it looks like, oh, well, I'm not living up to what that is. Maybe I'm not supposed to. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be who I am. I am who I am. Well, you're a male if those qualities aren't something that you're looking to be. Okay. And for us in Generation X, we were judged on those qualities. Mistakes were part of the game. Doing wrong things are part of the game. They're not a part of the long-term game. They're a part of the game. They're the part of the game that teach you that that move isn't conducive to a virtuous life. Now, I do believe that we have to have all these experiences. We have to fall short of the standards that we set. But see, therein lies another problem. Have you set standards as a male to grow into manhood? And I think a lot of us don't look at virtues and qualities of being a man as something that should have a standard. We feel like it should be the way I am, the way I am. Well, most of the way you are is learned behavior, okay? And we're seeing a lot of behavior today that you wouldn't find acceptable yourself, okay? So just to cut this short and to give you guys a little bit of what I call a merge theology of what I think the modern man should still kind of look like, if you're going to call yourself a man, you should have some form of self-mastery, whether that's in a skill, whether that's in a profession, whether that's in an artistic endeavor. There's a self-mastery that comes along with being a man, whether that's, I'm not even going to go as far as saying whether you're in the gym every day and you're really deep, because that becomes vanity. It really does. And when I look out here today, I see males because you're still stuck in vanity. You're not doing the things for your body because having that mastery over your body helps you become the master of your manhood, which is what I think working out does. Working out gives you something to be consistent in, something that in that consistency shows great results. Okay. Next, moral courage and integrity. Moral courage. It takes a lot to admit when you're wrong, but that's a man's quality. Falling short of his own standard and getting back on the horse and doing better moving forward is a quality. Okay, but you have to first set that standard. Justice and service to others. Ladies, which one of you wouldn't want to have a man that sought justice and served others. I think every one of you would enjoy that. And last, I'm going to go over is humility, compassion, and forgiveness. Now, just because I forgive you doesn't mean I'm going to forget. And sometimes part of that forgiveness is moving forward without you, or you moving forward without me. That's part of it. And that first part of that forgiveness has to be an internal forgiveness. Sorry to forgive someone of your transgression when you haven't forgiven yourself. So my unking insight talks about what some of the old qualities of being a man is about. And are you living up to those qualities? Have you created a standard of life for you to grow into your manhood instead of continuing in your maledom? Because most of the people I see with vanity, gossip, these are men. These are people who call themselves men, and gossip, vanity, self-righteousness. None of those qualities that assure that a man is moving in a position where you would want him to be by your side or someone that you call when things got rough. So that's my own insight.
That was fabulous. That vanity piece, I think the biggest problem with vanity, which I think is a big problem in the Western world, it's just a big problem, right? Especially now, and especially when visible, like visuals are so readily available and part of our commerce, which is part of how we live, right? So there's a reason for that, and sometimes it's like if I'm going to invest in my appearance, and I want the attention that comes with it. What happens is when we think that it replaces your integrity, right? That somehow that because you have the outside part, that we shouldn't be looking for the mastery. We shouldn't be looking for the purposefulness. We shouldn't be looking for, right? Like we shouldn't be looking for you to be anything else. Like, oh, you're pretty, so you don't have to do anything else. Like that is something I think needs to be corrected.
It's funny because that used to be what men said about women. Now women can literally say it about men. The roles have flipped when it comes to that type of vanity, which is why I say going to the gym used to be about a mastery. I need to make sure my body understands that we're getting in shape for the good of us moving forward for longevity. So I want a life that's healthy. I want a life that makes me feel healthy, not curls are for the girls. Nah. What are you doing? But that's exactly what guys are going to the gym for. They're walking around here with all of these muscles and still getting chin checked on live. What is this? Because they haven't mastered martial arts, or they haven't mastered things that are a little harder to accomplish, because you are literally battling your instinct. You're battling, and it's about peace anyway. Let's not even get into the violent aspect of it. We'll take that too far too. But yeah, it's to me, it's really frightening. And so I asked ChatGPT about that question, about what we're working on. And as we move into segment 4, our mailbag, ChatGPT came up with a great question for us. And
wait a minute. I want to know what everybody thinks about that. Do you think, like, what other qualities do you expect from a man versus a male? Is the other option, which is how Daryl makes distinguishes between somebody who is, a man who is grown and somebody who's still got some maturing to do, right? And I think, do you think it's any different for women? That's one of my questions. I'm interested to see what y'all think about that. Is it any different for women? And what is different about it, right? I think if I was going to pick one, I would say women in the maturing of truly being a full-fledged woman needs to have an understanding of her emotions and where they're coming from in a way that men also need, but because it rules so much of us, and not just that, not that it rules us, but it's essentially our cycles are run on this changing of feelingness, right? And that essentially creates emotion. Now, and so therefore, in a way that men don't have to deal with it, like they have kind of the same template of body to run their emotions on, so they can learn over time how to deal with their emotions pretty easily because they don't change. Like they come, like they same things make them angry, same things make them sad, same things make them right. So women, that changes. Like the thing that you loved yesterday could be like, get that out of my face, like another day. So I think in that way, I think it's different for women, at least in that piece. I would say men are far behind and they've been talking about their emotions, but they don't have as much to deal with. Typically, and that's, generalities are generalities. And of course, we're talking anatomically and not necessarily by identity right now. But
yeah, we have, it's almost weird because we do have like this whole switch of roles now where men have zero control of their emotions. And it's true, man. Like if you tell one of these dudes, hey man, you're gossipy with your conversation there, homie. Oh my God. Man gossip is huge right now.
I think man gossip has always been huge. I don't think that's different. I think sports are man gossip.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Like,
we're not talking sports anymore. We're not.
Oh, he grew up with it.
See, here's the thing about man gossip from my generation. Man gossip in my generation, we have receipts. You want to talk about your favorite player? We compared stats. You want to talk about just like the quarterback question, just like the GOAT question. The GOAT question isn't a new question. It's not a question because LeBron James plays basketball. Well, Michael Jordan had his GOAT question with Julius Erving. Thompson, he was compared to the greats before him when he was considered the best basketball player in the world. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he had the GOAT questions with, Wilt Chamberlain and, Oscar Robertson. So the GOAT question has always existed, right? But now we have this aspect of it that feels more like the Wendy Williams show. Like
ooh,
we got dirt and mud you want to throw on somebody. Michael Jordan was a big gambler. Yeah, who cares? Ellen Everson wasn't a practice player. Yeah, who cares? And I seen LeBron James in a dress for Halloween. Okay. It's like gossip now. It's not about sports. It's not about that.
It's not about the mastery, right? I think at least when they're talking about like the practice thing, it's like, okay, like couldn't you be a team player and not be a practice player, right? Or at least I'm assuming, I don't even know what that means, but I'm assuming that's what that means. But like, that's at least a component of the game that it's like, okay, let's talk about if the team can be at its best if you're not where they want you to be.
And it's funny, that whole question about Allen Iverson and practice. You talking about practice? Well, this is the gossip generation that we don't even talk about the full press conference. He had his best friend was just murdered. He had put his grandmother in the grave like a week before. And so when they get to the press conference and they're asking him why wasn't he at practice, and when he got to practice, why wasn't he participating? And with all of that heaviness in his heart, he said, practice? You want to talk about practice? We're not talking about a game. We're talking about practice. So he was going through those emotions of everything happening in his life, and they're questioning him like, you can't be to practice? Well, he don't get paid to practice. He gets paid for games. He's like, we're not talking about a game. You guys are having a problem with me. I'm dealing with this about practice. And that's the full understanding of the quote. But we
Oh.
never get that from the Gossip Kings.
Well, I don't know, because now that is kind of gossip. Now we're talking about his life.
But he spoke on it.
Yeah, and I think again, like again, I kind of talks about the times too, because back then we didn't expect the men to have feelings. So you're
Correct.
just like, oh, I didn't realize you could feel bad even when your grandma died, right? Like, I don't know, like, because I think, especially back then, I don't know if they care today, but back then, if a woman came in and a family member had passed, they'd be like, whoa, what are you doing here? They wouldn't even expect you to be there because they would assume either you're emotionally devastated or that you had to do things for your family and that was your priority, because that's just the assumption of women back then, right? So it's interesting, right? So I think in a lot of ways, it's kind of that question of like, is it a good thing, and when does it go too far? When does it become unbalanced in the expression and it becomes more negative than positive, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, what's our question?
So the mailbag question for this week is, I keep attracting emotionally unavailable men. Even though I'm doing the work to heal, I'm still wounded in my feminine. Or is it just that there are no balanced masculine men out there anymore? How to tell the difference? You go ahead and lead us off.
Oh, first I gotta leave that.
Yeah, how do you tell the
Well,
difference?
well, honey, you tell the difference when they shut down when you're trying to have a conversation, you know? And I'm not gonna say, and I think it's unfair to say like, are there any balanced men anymore? Like, are there any balanced women? Are there any balanced anybody? Like, nobody's balanced. And the question really is, are you both willing to work on it? Are you working on it? Are you willing to work on it? In any relationship dynamic, right? So if somebody's not willing to work on something and it's not up to your standard, then probably not the person for you. If somebody's willing to work on it, are you willing to work on it with them? Are you invested enough to work on it with them? You know, like that's to me the question. Like,
there's an underlying factor when we talk about relationships today. And a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but you lose a great portion of what you call power when you sleep with somebody. I said it. When your relationship starts as a sexual encounter, male and female, this is not just one side, this is both of us. You lose a lot of power. What do you mean by power? You lose the power of discernment. You lose the power of vetting. Okay. You lose the power of, I don't want to say getting to know someone because those things are arbitrary, but you do lose the power of the ability to use intuition once you've given away once you've given away the crown. It's almost like trying to take a crown back from a peasant when you've made them king or queen. The moment you make someone king or queen, it's hard to go back and say, oh, you know what? You don't actually deserve that position. I kind of made a mistake. I didn't know you were like that. Which I don't even understand, yo.
I don't even understand. Like, even when I was younger, I never understood casual sex because I was like, okay, and you could possibly get a disease from somebody, but you don't even know them enough to ask the question. Like, I'm just cautious that way. It never occurred to me to like, I need to know certain things before we're gonna swap body fluids, and then that to me is part of it. But also the vetting thing is real. Like, are you and how can you really do? Because I think one of the biggest problems in our generation was that men were willing to say anything to get to the sex point. So you got the problem of people just straight up lying. But what I do agree with is that in a big area, we lose power by losing our ability to discern, because now we have mixed chakras. Okay. We used to call it, what do we used to call it in church? Where like, it's basically you get married to that person spiritually, right? So it's this idea essentially that once you've put your body with somebody else's, that you now have a tie to them that you can't really take away, right? And we used to talk about it as, you know, a spirit, a spirit essentially, because when you're that third thing, the tie, the connection becomes a third, right? And
That's why
so
1 + 1 = 3 and not 2.
and so like to me that was enough of a deterrent. You know, we grew up in church, so I'm like, I don't need to be mixing spirits, but none of these fools, like none of them get that, right? But then you know you get a little older, you start to experiment, and then you're like, okay, it's still there, but there has to be some level of like, okay, I'm willing to go through that. I'm willing to have that connection, and your intuition's tied into that. That's what I'm trying to get to. Because when that energy mixes, now you can't really tell what's your observation, what's their observation with a high level of discernment, right? Are you hearing their lie and saying, that's interesting that somebody would say that in that way? Or are you hearing their lie and you're like, oh, this person, I'm already on their team. I'm already part of their energy. Like, I'm willing to like smudge the edges, right? Which is essentially what you would do. It's kind of like if it was a sibling or a spirit comparison, but it is the same thing. Like my sister starts lying to my mom, then yeah, so it's like sorry, I'm getting this little weird message from TikTok. But if my sister was lying to my mom, I wasn't gonna automatically just like, ooh, Mina, that's a lie, right? I'm gonna say, I'm just be like, oh, like I don't know why she's saying it. Like I'm on her team, right? So it's that kind of question to me. Like, are you willing to have the same level of discernment if you're in an intimate relationship? And I think when you have committed to doing something together, which is a real relationship. So you've decided you're together and you're going to go a certain time together at least, or you're going to do certain things together. That's the first thing. And then when you decide you're going to be with that person for a committed set of the rest of your life, hopefully, is how y'all think about that. If not, that's okay. Maybe it's not a good thing anymore. I don't know. But
no, it matters.
But like if you've set that commitment, then that looks different. That's just why things change when you're married. It's not because the spark is gone. It's because now we have different levels to our relationship. We have our sexual, chemistry. We have our, like, I'm your friend, we're on the same team. We have our, like, how we are both approaching how we're getting life done, right? And those are all different kind of functions of relationship. Those are 3 different types of relationship. And so it's not that you're not sexually attracted anymore. It's just only a third or maybe less of the relationship, right? And so you have to make a decision on what kind of relationship you're being in. And that has to be communicated. This is why marriage is hard, because you can't just assume the other person's where you're at or thinking on the same relationship level, or right? Because there's also, like, we have competitive sides. We're both leader types, and we both have our own ideas. So there's also kind of that. There's like kind of a competition level. So competition level is not the same thing as a friend level. It's not, we're not on the same team. We have 2 different ideas, right? So not being able to adjust and recognize and discern those things because nothing has been clearly stated. Like, that's always been boggling to me. Like, oh, we're together. But did he say that y'all were together? Like, people coming around talking about, I'm just like, well, what gave you that idea? Oh, because we slept together. But did he Did he say that he wanted to be in a relationship, or did you just assume that because he slept with you that y'all are in a relationship? That's you where it used to be. It doesn't sound like that anymore. But that, you know, and that's to me like those are the things that time gives you that you can't get in an overnight thing, you know?
Yeah, we are definitely in the middle of this hookup culture. Um, you know, I had a conversation with someone, I was on his live, and I've been married for 18 years. I've had girlfriends before I got married, and I'm not a cheater. I've never cheated. I've never seen the value of cheating. I just never have. Um, I don't have the energy to put into more than one woman. One woman has always been more than enough for me energetically, you know. And I say that because now we're in a culture where, you know, if intercourse is marriage, then you get married before you meet. You get married. Some of you get married before you even know the person's last name, before you know where each other live, where each other work. What are your goals? How do you see life changing for you in the next 2 to 3 years? You know, what brings you to this club? You know, 400 miles away from your home. You know, wherever you meet. You know, there we seem to be putting the cart before the horse in just about everything we do. Everything is instant gratification. And in that instant gratification, we as beings of um, repetitive action, like we get used to and addicted to, you know, these false premises of, you know, the goal is to, yeah, I want to be with this woman physically. Right? And so when I was growing up, there was a process. Get to know her, get to know what she's about, you know, and talk on the phone, you know, even in our relationship of 20 years, I mean, because we were separated by, you know, several hundred miles, our relationship literally started on the phone. It started with conversations. It started with finding out who you are. We don't have to do that anymore, you know.
Well, when you think about relationships for fun though, and I think because I've always been conflicted on this. Like I just told you, I'm somebody who I'm not interested in like I've never been like even as a child, I've never interested in just like jumping into something and just seeing what happens. Like that was never that was just not in my wheelhouse. But I know there are other personality types. So what I know is that there are people who are like, well, it was just a great night out and we were having fun and it happened. And like, do you think that like for people that it is easy, that they have hundreds of relationships, so having a sexual one is just another thing, you know? Like for me, that's not that easy. I'm an introvert. I only have some relationships because of the amount of energy it takes to maintain it. So I'm not interested in having a ton of relationships with anybody, including clients. Like I only need so many, right? So what do you think about people who just have like a higher capacity for dealing with people?
That's not a higher capacity with dealing with people. If we're talking about this subject of um, hookup culture, then it's literally a sexual addiction. We're not dealing with people who are now emotionally vested. We're dealing with addicts trying to get fixes.
Which I think is valid. And I think honestly, like not necessarily because I don't think of anything as a bad thing. Let's get that clear. I don't think anything's bad about being promiscuous. I think some people have an office for it, honestly. Like I believe there's certain prostitutes that are I think that's the right word. What's the right word? Shoot, I believe I can't remember. There's a right word for it. I've totally lost. I'm sorry, people. But that is an office that you can literally that should be healers. Something that's what I think of it as personally. I think of it as sexual healers. But there could be people who literally like they're made to be able to absorb things in that way. And I think a lot of people are in that office and don't know it, even if they're, and that's another thing that kind of bothers me about people who are promiscuous who don't realize that they're servicing, they're servicing people, including men, that they're servicing people and they don't know they don't know how to take care of themselves energetically. Again, they don't know how to handle that.
The energy isn't aligned. The energy isn't aligned. We're not aligned to that type of mentality because we're so out of whack. Men are so out of whack from any type of um, wisdom, courage, temperance, because that's all a part of growing up and being a man. But if at every click I can have somebody come over and satisfy this thing that's urging in me as opposed to dealing with these urges. See, it's the easy way out. When we were growing up, it wasn't that easy. So you had to deal with your urges. You had to deal with those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my problem is we're in an addiction world. We're in an addiction culture. We're in an addiction world. Like everybody has addictions. Like most of us, it's the phone, or and
well, that's how they got the rest of us.
Well, and I think we all see, this is why I think it's important to know yourself and to regulate your stress. Know when you're stressed. Know when you are in avoidance. We're gonna get into that more later. But I think this became a whole topic, yo.
Yeah.
But I am interested in how other people kind of took that conversation, because you may be a little old fashioned in that sense, and I want to see how people would deal with these things nowadays, how they think of them. If they think we're being too.
Okay, moving on to segment 5. And our topic for today: divine feminine and masculinity. Are not at war? So I am a firm believer that they're not at war. I think we are misaligned. And when I say misaligned is they say relationships are 50-50. You hear other people have different philosophies about that. I'm one of the what you would call the 100-100 people, and that you come with as much of 100% of yourself, and that other person has to come with as much of 100% of themselves. Okay. When I see what's happening, especially on the TikTok, like every other, this one girl has this thing that says, "Who told men that they were built to lead women?" Okay. Technically, scripture told men that. But also, scripture can be doctored to empower or belittle who it chooses to. So I think if we looked at nature, nature says feminine is leader, masculine is physical help. Because feminine has to spend so much time in a space of darkness, primordial creation, and men, we are lichens and vampires. Okay. Men are men of the light. The light is masculine. Women are beings of darkness, beings of creation. They are the creators. They bring life into this planet. So they live in this space of creation. And whether you know it or not, it's also in my book, Everybody's On. I believe that darkness is creation and light reveals creation. So our job as light beings of masculinity is to reveal the creation of our counterpart darkness, which is the feminine energy. which is why men carry both chromosomes. Okay. So to me, in that sense of following nature, our process is to support our feminine counterpart, and bring light to the creation that you guys have together. Um, I've kind of always believed that. I believe that every one of us has a role. And I think we're in this situation, the pendulum swing to craziness of where we are now is part of the alignment. Um, but I'm looking forward to femininity and masculinity becoming aligned again and becoming the twin flames that they're supposed to be.
I love it. Yes. I mean, masculine and feminine, like the aspects that are divine. I know they're not at work. They're working together, right? And in all the aspects of yin yang, of I think of the space time, all of the aspects, like the things that focus and drive, and the things that expand and create space for the creation and make the thing happen, right? Both of those aspects are things that work together. One does not work without the other, so to speak, in the fulfillment of the objective, which is creation, right? And so yeah, so I think it's really interesting that we make it we make our human history the story of the energy or the spiritual aspect. And that may have been enforced on us again by religion and things like the Bible. But it's still something that I'm still at this day and age, it's starting to boggle my mind how we keep falling for this story, even as a narrative just to drive attention. That, especially men, honestly, like I feel like men really buy into this story that women are against them, or that they don't, or and women, like that they're by, like even our own feminine movements, that just because we're trying to get to a point where we're recognized and valued equally, or at minimum, does not mean that we don't need men. Like the idea that we don't need each other, the idea that we, like, I don't understand how we ever got convinced of these things, you know?
I honestly think it's a psyop. I think it's a psychological operation that got us to this point. And it's funny because I never wanted to watch that movie Barbie when it came out. Like, I had zero interest in watching Barbie. But let me tell you something, man. Every dude needs to watch that movie. Like, it is the message. There's a message in that movie. And so you saw this in a woman's mind, this perfect world. In Barbie's mind, she had the perfect world. And when she took Ken to reality or real life, Ken started to see what it looked like to live in a patriarchy. Now, you show any guy who's lived his life in a matriarchy what a patriarchy can look like, he's gonna get a hard on. He's gonna be like, what in the sandhill is this world? But the underlying theme of that movie still was that even in Barbie's perfectly pedicured matriarch, the real world, which was designing and creating that, with the corporation, was still full of men. So Barbie was only in that moment representing our still masculine desires, right? And that's what I really liked about that movie. It was like, it has really gotten out of whack. I think what I really
Yeah.
notice now is the lack of respect that now exists between the masculine and feminine. You know, lots of
The
disrespect to mamas.
complete discounting of other people. Like I just don't understand how we keep falling for the same trick, you know, that somebody's existence isn't valid is like a really, I don't understand how anybody can feel that way. Um, and and yeah, and that's what, you know, I love Barbie and I didn't love Barbie. I agreed that it's like kind of a masculine version of a feminine world. And it also again drives this idea that if women are in charge, that they would choose a world where men have no validity. Like,
Well,
like
it shows.
I don't get it. I don't get where we're getting these ideas outside of people who just want us to be afraid of change. Um, but yeah, like it that's just not how women work. I mean, women have always been driven by community. They just have always done so. There's like a genetic thing. Like there's not anything you can really do about it. You're going to be thinking about how we can all thrive as a family and a community. That is just part of the innate. That's how we survive for a long time now. So it's a lot of just our drivers in our genetic code. And then there's also the aspect that when you have a baby, you don't have a choice but be dependent on certain things from the community and our family, right? And so, and so at some point, you need people, and so that kind of innately inhabits the woman as a body, and that they're trying to make you believe that you don't need anybody only drives the point home where it's like, okay, now you know you should be able to do everything, which is essentially what we were doing in the patriarchy to begin with. We're doing everything, but we're getting no credit. Now they want us to get credit for doing everything. And I'm like, no, I still don't want to do everything. I only want to do what I choose to do and what hasn't been taken care of by somebody who can do it better. Like that's all I'm interested in. I'm not interested in doing everything, you know? Like, and I've always been in rebellion over that. Like, no, I'm not going to do everything. I'm not going to have a job and a baby and no, I'm not doing it.
So let's hear what ChatGPT has to say about this question. If the divine feminine and masculine are at war. So ChatGPT's response is there is no war in truth, only imbalance, begging for harmony. The idea that divine feminine and masculine are at war is a distortion of trauma passed down through broken systems, colonization, patriarchy, forced religion, and fractured homes. These energies are not enemies. They are the partners in sacred creation. The feminine is the void, the womb, the wave, intuitive, nurturing, magnetic. The masculine is destruction, the sword, the flame, protective, directive, catalytic. In divine union, he becomes the sword and she becomes the sanctuary. The war begins when ego replaces essence and pain takes the throne. The goal of the awakened ones is not to debate roles, but to restore rhythm, like drum and dancer, like sun and moon, thought and breath. Totally agree with that assessment, Chat GPT. I think we have lost them. I think what makes our marriage work is I'm a team type player. I want the team to engage in household. All of these things are team oriented. Life is a team sport. It is not an individual sport. And if you're choosing to have life with another partner, then in that partnership, your load should be lightened.
Gosh, that's so good. That is the truth. And we're all striving for that 100% mark and or better. because sometimes you got to be better than you thought you were. That's how we grow, right? Like that's the whole thing. That's you get to the 100% mark and you evolve. And you don't usually choose to be 100% mark either. It's usually that life is calling for more than you currently are offering. I don't know. I think the right way to do it is to choose it, right? I think what I'm learning more about Daryl that I could never fully understand because I'm so clearly introverted was that the team player also meant like he wants to do things with people, right? And as an introvert, like a lot of times, like it doesn't even cross my mind. Like, why would you want to do nothing with somebody else? Like, I figure we've already done that. We're married. We're doing life. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's something, and we've got a paper that says we're together. So that's being together, right? But as I grow and as I realize that actually teamwork actually means that you're with them, like you're with them as you're doing the work, right? And so I've now realized, okay, I can be conscious of when I need definitely my restorative time space alone, but I can also be conscious of when I'm deciding to do things as a team, right? And I'm working on it. I hope to be much better very quickly. But those are the things that you start to realize. Like, and I would definitely go it your own, be independent, do it on your own. Like that's how I was raised. That's what I thought was possible. And then I realized, you know what? The way I don't believe that I should like be in charge of a home and a job and a baby and all the things. I don't believe that I'm supposed to be doing it on my own. I don't believe that anymore. So I'm looking for, like, I have a beautiful husband, and then I'm looking for a wonderful community to be doing things with. That is what we're doing. We're building that community together. As
Teamwork makes the dream work. All right. Well, we have gotten through.
We did it.
And we are in segment 6, from here to there. Today's episode was pretty awesome. Some really serious topics, tackling masculine and femininity. It's big stuff, man. But I honestly, and if I'm going to wrap this up with my own thought about this, I think we all have to find internally who we are. I wouldn't. We all need some abstaining for self-reflection. Abstain for the self-reflection.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's true. I think a good thing to reflect on is how are we avoiding? How are we avoiding what we say we want? So like Carolyn Meese, I'm reading her book, Sacred Contracts. I don't know if she said in the book exactly like this, but I saw her talking in a speech, and she spoke of how not being able to heal or having like a terminal, well, not really terminal, but like a disease, something that's going to take away from life, um, and not healing from it is an aspect of choosing not to use your power, right? And at first I was like, but then it really hit home because essentially what happens a lot of times is that we assume that when we're broken, there is no wholeness to be had, right? And I see that reflected in several ways. I see that like when people come to me about their voice and they think, oh, I'm not a singer, so I don't want to sing. And I'm just like, well, you're human, right? Like because like all humans can sing. Whether you want to work on it and whether you want to use your power, energy, or time for it, that's your business, right? But if you're just saying that I'm permanently broken, then I don't accept that really. From the only person I would come, like unless you were born with something that doesn't allow you to just sing, to use your voice, period. Otherwise, if you can respond in a conversation, you can sing. you know? So, yeah, so to me, it's about that. What are we avoiding? And one of the questions about that was, how are you using what you feel is not working for you, your life, what's not working for you? So that could be an unfulfilled dream, unfulfilled goal, even the illness itself. How are you using that to punish others?
Cool.
That was like deep for me.
Yeah. So we want your help this week. We want you to help us choose next week's episode. So this week's episode, Divine Feminine and Masculine Are Not at War, comes from our Conscious and Awakening series. We also have a Relationship and Healing series, as well as a Money, Power, and Purpose series. So I'll give you one from each for you guys to choose on what you would like to see us have a conversation about. From our Relationship and Healing series, we have, let's go with Love Ain't Enough, what real commitment looks like. Okay. From our Consciousness and Awakening series, let's put the option as what the ancestors want us to know now. And for the Money, Power, and Purpose series, let's go with Turning Pain into Purpose. Our survival is our superpower. We loved having you here today. We thank you for your time, your presence, and the energy you put into us and our show. Go back and watch our previous episodes on YouTube under Monifa Harris, Voicing Your Vision page. Find the previous 7 episodes.
Yes, find us. And remember, you are always invited. You are invited to our lovely stage. So if you want to share music with us or art with us, send it on over. We will put it into the show. If you have any questions, again, we are looking for questions. We want to answer your questions, so send those in. And, or if you want to show up yourself, you want to share your own voice and what you're up to and what your vision is, what's going on with you in the world, then please do contact us and let's have some fun together.
Let's connect.
All right. So we will see you on our next. Oh, yeah, I remember. So we have a new process now. So, yay. All right, folks, remember your voice is your portal. Use it with power.
And your presence is the product. Let it sell itself. Much love. See you guys next week.
Sending out love. See you next time.